The moment he stepped inside, the laughter didn't stop, it only got quieter. The sales team didn't break stride when they turned to look at him, but the judgment in their eyes was instant. His clothes spoke louder than he did. Worn jeans, a faded denim jacket, a scuffed pair of work boots that had seen years of long shifts and muddy lots. His skin was dark, his hands rough, his face lined with quiet strength. He carried no watch, no brand-name belt, no sunglasses tucked into his collar. He walked in like he had every right to be there. And that's what bothered them most. They didn't expect someone like him to cross that threshold, someone black, clearly working class, and alone. Especially not into a showroom like this. Lennox Premier Motors wasn't just a dealership. It was a status symbol, a curated space where wealth whispered and exclusivity shouted. Customers didn't come here. They were invited. He wasn't. Behind the receptionist's desk, a young white woman glanced up, her smile polite but forced, the way someone smiles when they expect a complaint, not a commission. She didn't say welcome. She said, "Are you lost?" He looked at her, calm. "No. I'm here to look at a car." Her eyes moved from his boots to his jacket. "We specialize in luxury vehicles, sir." "I know exactly where I am," he said. "I'm here to buy a graduation gift for my daughter." Her lips twitched. She didn't offer him a seat. Didn't ask his name. Just motioned toward the lobby chairs near the espresso bar. "Someone will be with you shortly." He nodded and walked toward the chairs. No fuss. No drama. Just quiet dignity. He sat down, back straight, eyes steady. He didn't touch the bottled water. Didn't look at his phone. He simply waited. And waited. And waited. 35 minutes passed. During that time, 3 other customers walked in. One white man in a suit. One couple, both white, mid-40s, talking loudly about golf and stocks. One younger woman with diamond earrings and a designer purse. Every one of them was greeted within 30 seconds. 2 were offered cappuccinos. The woman was shown the latest BMW model before she'd even mentioned what she was shopping for. But the man in the denim jacket? He sat. Still waiting. Near the glass window overlooking the parking lot, 2 salesmen chatted in hushed tones. Not quiet enough. I swear, he walked straight in like he owned the place. What do you think he's here for, a brochure? Probably trying to get warm. You see those boots? Look, man, the other one chuckled, I'm not saying he doesn't deserve to dream, but this ain't a dreamer's lot. You don't walk in dressed like that, all dark and dusty, and expect us to hand you the keys to a Benz. The receptionist snorted quietly behind her desk. He asked for a graduation gift. You believe that? I don't even think he could afford a keychain here. They all laughed. And he heard every word. He didn't flinch. But inside, something old and familiar stirred. It wasn't new. This look. This tone. This doubt. He'd seen it in banks, in hotel lobbies, and restaurants where the maitre d' kept losing reservations. He'd learned long ago that you could have money in your pocket and still be made to feel like you didn't belong in the room. Especially if you were black. Especially if you didn't flaunt it. Finally, a salesman approached. Young, sharp-suited, pale-skinned, with hair slicked back just enough to suggest confidence but not arrogance. His name tag said Kyle. His expression said bare minimum effort. Hey there, Kyle said. You been helped yet? He had the nerve to ask that after 40 minutes. The man looked up. No. I haven't. Kyle nodded, as if that was just fine. Okay. Well, I'm Kyle. What are you looking for today? I'm buying a car. For my daughter. She just graduated top of her class. MBA. I want to get her something special. Reliable. Safe. But nice. Kyle blinked slowly. Sure. Okay. What's your budget range, if you don't mind? 100 to 150, the man replied. Or more. Depending on the car. The shift in Kyle's expression was subtle, but not subtle enough. A second of disbelief. A flicker of evaluation. Then the salesman smiled, faker this time. Of course. Right this way. He led him across the floor, passing the certified pre-owned sedans, straight to the newest line of BMW 7 Series. He started rambling about features, showing off touchscreen displays and European leather stitching. Do you plan to lease or finance? Kyle asked, not looking at him. Neither, the man answered. I'll pay cash. Kyle stopped walking. Cash? Yes. I'll need to talk to my manager, Kyle said. We have policies about purchases of that size. You do that, the man said. And while you're at it, ask your receptionist why she thought I was lost when I walked in. Ask your colleagues why they laughed behind my back. Ask yourself why it took you 35 minutes to speak to the only black man on your showroom floor. And then, ask your manager if he thinks I should still buy this car here, or take my business somewhere that doesn't treat customers like trash because of how they look. Kyle's jaw clenched. Sir, I think you're being unfair. No one meant anything personal. That's the problem, the man said. You never do. But you make it personal the second you judge someone by what they're wearing, or the color of their skin, or the dirt on their boots. You judged me before I said a word. And you're not even smart enough to hide it. Kyle stood there, frozen. People nearby had begun to notice the tension. One of the other salesmen backed slowly toward the manager's office. The man reached into his pocket, pulled out a business card, and handed it to Kyle. You have 2 hours, he said. Call the number. Speak to Stephanie. She'll confirm my accounts. And when she does, you'll know exactly how badly you just messed up. He turned and walked toward the door. No security was called. No apology was offered. No hand was extended to stop him. He didn't slam the door. Didn't raise his voice. But he left behind a silence louder than any outburst. And on that small white card, and bold black letters, read a name they had never bothered to ask. Daniel Mason. President, Mason Group Holdings. By the time the receptionist read it aloud, the color had drained from her face. And the manager? He was already reaching for the phone. But it might have been too late. Because some lines, once crossed, don't get redrawn. Some customers, once disrespected, don't come back. And some moments reveal who we are more clearly than a lifetime of polished words. The phone rang only once before she answered. Her voice was calm, clipped, unmistakably professional. This is Stephanie Klein. The general manager of Lennox Premier Motors cleared his throat and straightened his posture, though she couldn't see him. His hand clutched the phone a little tighter than he liked to admit. Miss Klein, this is Richard Holloway, general manager over at Lennox Motors in River Heights. I was given your contact information by a Mr. Daniel Mason. A pause. When she responded, her tone turned slightly colder. Yes. I'm aware. Richard continued carefully, trying not to sound as nervous as he felt. He visited our showroom this afternoon and expressed interest in purchasing one of our top-line vehicles. He left your number as a financial reference. Another pause. Then her words landed with the precision of a scalpel. Let me be perfectly clear, Mr. Holloway. Mr. Mason is not simply a client. He is the principal shareholder of our largest private investment portfolio. His liquidity exceeds 8 figures. If he told you he was buying something, you should be preparing delivery, not verification. Richard swallowed hard. I understand. We were simply following protocol. I apologize for. Your protocol, Stephanie interrupted, is not what delayed this process. Your assumptions are. There was silence. A long one. Stephanie continued, her voice measured but sharp. Mr. Mason has endured more disrespect in spaces like yours than I care to list. But he still believes in giving people the chance to do the right thing. You have 2 hours. Use them wisely. Click. The line went dead. Richard didn't move. For a full minute, he stood there behind his glass office door, staring blankly at the reflection of himself, the suit, the polished shoes, the title that suddenly felt far less impressive. Outside, his team was pretending not to watch. Kyle stood stiffly by the espresso machine, sipping coffee he hadn't even noticed was empty. The receptionist was fidgeting with her nails, eyes darting between Richard's door and the card Daniel Mason had left behind, now lying on her desk like an indictment. Richard finally stepped out. Call detail. I want the black Aston detailed inside and out. Remove the tag. Prep the title forms. And Kyle, he turned to the younger salesman, who snapped to attention, you'll be the one to call him. Sir, Now. Kyle hesitated, then picked up the desk phone and dialed the number on the card. It rang once. Twice. Then a voice came on, deep, calm, unmistakably composed. Mason. Mr. Mason, this is Kyle from Lennox Premier Motors. I just wanted to follow up regarding our conversation earlier. Silence. Kyle cleared his throat. Our team has finalized the paperwork on the vehicle you selected. The car is being prepared for delivery now. We would be honored to complete your purchase today. And on behalf of everyone at Lennox. Stop, Mason said. Kyle froze. I'm not interested in your apologies, Mason continued. I don't want a discount. I don't want perks. What I want is for you to think long and hard about what happened this afternoon. Kyle was silent. You judged me the moment I walked in. Didn't ask my name. Didn't ask my story. You just looked at my boots and my skin and wrote me off. Mr. Mason, I've spent 30 years building a life that doesn't scream for attention. I wear what I want. I drive what I need. I don't flaunt. That's not how I was raised. But I came into your store thinking maybe, just maybe, I'd be treated like a man, not a stereotype. Instead, you let me sit there while others were served coffee and smiles. And you mocked me. In your showroom. In front of your team. Kyle opened his mouth, but no words came. I'll be there in 30 minutes, Mason said. Not to hear more apologies. But to finish what I came to do. If your team still wants my business, they can earn it by staying silent and learning something. Otherwise, I'll buy the same car elsewhere, and I'll be sure to let the owner of Lennox's parent company know why. Click. He hung up. Back at the dealership, no one dared speak for a while. Richard walked to the showroom floor, looked around at the polished cars, the fake smiles, the forced ease. Everyone on best behavior, he said. And if anyone so much as smirks, they're out. Kyle nodded quickly. Yes, sir. 30 minutes later, the double doors opened. Mason stepped in. This time, he wasn't alone. A woman walked behind him in a tailored blue blazer, carrying a black leather folio. 2 men in sport coats followed with tablets in hand. Mason, still in the same denim jacket and boots, walked as if he owned the floor, which, in a sense, he now did. No one laughed this time. No one looked away either. He walked straight to Kyle. Where's the paperwork? Kyle nodded, led him to the desk near the front window where everything was ready. The woman in the blazer reviewed each form as he signed. The sales staff watched, silent. When it was done, Mason looked up. I want the vehicle delivered to 110 West Waverly Drive. Friday. 5 p.m. sharp. My daughter is graduating. The car is her gift. Richard stepped forward. We'll ensure it's detailed, ribboned, and delivered with a bow. Mason turned to him. Good. And one more thing. Richard braced. I want you to be the one who hands her the keys. That landed like a punch in the gut. Richard blinked. Me? Yes. I want you to look her in the eye. Hand her the keys. And tell her she earned it. Because you need to understand something, Mr. Holloway. You didn't just disrespect me today. You disrespected every black father who's ever been made to feel like he didn't belong. Every working man who walked into a room and was told by silence that he was less. You don't get to fix that with polish and paperwork. You fix it by showing up. With humility. Richard nodded. Slowly. I'll be there. Mason nodded once. Then left. No handshake. No thank you. Because dignity wasn't something he owed them. It was something he had always owned. And now, they would remember his name. By the time the first name was called, the Civic Center was already packed. Folding chairs lined every row, programs rustled like leaves in the breeze of ceiling fans overhead, and parents leaned forward, cell phones gripped tightly, ready to catch a blurry shot of pride they'd revisit for years. The stage was modest, nothing extravagant, but to every student walking across it, it was the culmination of sleepless nights, student loans, and battles no one else ever saw. And for one student in particular, it was about to become the most unforgettable moment of her life. Alana Mason sat in the third row from the front, her navy blue gown pressed in perfect, her cap tilted just slightly to the left the way she always wore her hats, like her father taught her. She held her hand still in her lap, though her heart wouldn't stop pounding. Not because she was nervous about the speech, or about walking across the stage. She wasn't the kind of person who feared the spotlight. It was because she hadn't seen her dad yet. He promised he'd be there. Daniel Mason was a man of few words, but he never made promises he didn't intend to keep. And when he told her he'd be sitting near the back, so I can see you walk straight ahead, not sideways, she had believed him without question. But now, 20 minutes in, she hadn't spotted him. Her eyes scanned the rows discreetly. She didn't see the jacket, or the boots, or that face that was weathered like a map of long roads traveled. What she didn't know was that he hadn't taken his seat in the audience. He was in the loading bay of the Civic Center, standing beside a luxury black SUV, speaking to two delivery staff and the general manager of Lennox Motors, who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, but knew full well he had no choice in the matter. Daniel turned to Richard Holloway and handed him a small black key fob, attached to it a folded card in a silver envelope. His voice was calm. "You remember what I said?" Richard nodded. "Yes, sir. I'll deliver it. Personally." "Good. And say it like you mean it. That's my daughter. And she doesn't deserve a single ounce of what you gave me." "I understand," Richard said. And for the first time, he meant it. Inside the auditorium, the names continued. Cheers erupted for some, quiet nods for others. But when the announcer reached the final block of letters, a pause came over the room. "And now, closing out this ceremony, we present the Dean's Medal for Excellence in Leadership to our graduating business scholar, Miss Alana Mason." The applause was polite at first, then it grew louder, stronger, more sustained. Some students stood, others whistled. Alana smiled and stepped onto the stage, calm but glowing. She shook the dean's hand, accepted her diploma, and began to turn when the announcer held up his hand again. "Miss Mason, if you would remain with us just a moment longer. We have something else today, a gift presented not from the university, but from someone who believed in you long before this day arrived. This gift isn't just a reward. It's a reflection of legacy, of perseverance, of the quiet strength passed from father to daughter, not in words, but in action." Alana's eyes widened. She didn't move. The dean stepped back, and for a moment, the lights dimmed slightly. Then, from the far right door of the stage, the black Aston Martin rolled in, slowly, silently, gleaming under the soft spotlights like a rolling sculpture. The crowd gasped. No one clapped. Not yet. They were too stunned. And behind the wheel, stepping out with slow, reverent movement, was Richard Holloway. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't grandstanding. He looked humbled. Like a man who'd seen something in himself he didn't like, and was still wrestling with it. He walked toward Alana, one hand holding the key fob, the other holding the silver envelope. When he spoke, his voice cracked ever so slightly over the microphone. "Miss Mason," he said, "this car was purchased by your father, Daniel Mason, to honor your graduation. He asked that I deliver it to you today, personally. And more importantly, that I tell you this, not just as a dealer, but as a man who learned something from him." He paused. "You didn't just earn this degree. You earned every bit of pride in your father's eyes. This car isn't a gift, it's a symbol of who you are. And of who he is." He handed her the keys. She stared at them, speechless. The crowd erupted. Cheering. Applauding. Some rose to their feet. Others wiped tears. Even students who barely knew her shouted her name. But Alana wasn't thinking about the car. She was looking past the crowd, over the heads, toward the very back of the auditorium, where she finally saw him. Her father. He stood there silently, hands folded in front of him, eyes glistening, face proud. He didn't wave. Didn't smile. Just nodded once, like he always did when he wanted her to know he saw everything. She jumped off the stage, robe flying, cap falling to the side. She ran straight down the aisle, between rows of stunned families, and threw her arms around him. He caught her without a word. "You did this?" she whispered. He nodded. "With cash?" She laughed through tears. "Of course with cash," he said. "What kind of father would I be if I gave you a future wrapped in debt?" She pulled back, eyes wet. "How did you even get them to agree to something like this?" He just smiled, the kind of smile that carried decades of experience, of being underestimated, of being overlooked. "I didn't ask," he said. "I told." Behind them, the car remained on stage. Cameras flashed. Reporters moved in. Someone was already writing about the mystery father who gifted a $200,000 car at graduation. But to Daniel Mason, none of that mattered. What mattered was the look in his daughter's eyes. The pride. The awe. The understanding that the man the world had often dismissed was, and always had been, the strongest foundation she would ever know. He didn't care about the cameras. He cared that she saw him. All of him. The man in work boots. The man with calloused hands. The man who, days earlier, had been laughed at in a showroom for daring to look like someone who couldn't afford to dream. Now, the only sound left was applause. Not for the car. Not for the surprise. But for the man who refused to raise his voice, because his actions spoke louder than they ever could. The story made the rounds quickly, first among the students and faculty, then in local news outlets, and by Monday, it had gone national. A short video clip taken by a student captured the moment Richard Holloway handed Alana the keys, with a voiceover from a nearby parent whispering, "That man in the back, he bought that for her. That's her father." The video was uploaded that night, and by morning, it had more than 2 million views. But by the time the world caught up, Daniel Mason had already gone back to work. Not work in an office. Not meetings in boardrooms or photo ops with executives. No, Mason went back to what he always did. Waking up early. Walking his land. Checking on his rental units. Having coffee with his accountant at the same diner he'd eaten breakfast at for 15 years. He didn't chase attention. And he didn't enjoy it chasing him. He turned down every interview. Declined every podcast. Ignored every sponsorship deal that found its way to his inbox. His voicemail filled up with people calling him an inspiration, a hero, a symbol of quiet resistance. But to him, he was still just a father who kept a promise. That was all. But not everyone forgot. Back at Lennox Premier Motors, the ripple effect hit differently. The week following the ceremony, 3 customers canceled appointments, each citing the viral video and how the staff treated Daniel Mason. One even requested to be served only by whoever handed the keys at graduation, not realizing that the man in question was the same general manager responsible for the original insult. Richard Holloway sat in his glass office, watching his staff from behind a thin film of shame. For years, he believed his operation was solid, professional, fair. But watching that footage, the awkward expression on his own face, the stiffness of his posture as he handed over those keys, it stripped away the illusion. He had failed. Not just as a manager. As a man. On Thursday, he gathered his staff before opening hours. No sales talk. No performance metrics. Just silence at first. Then truth. "I owe all of you an apology," he began. "Not for what I said, but for what I allowed to happen. For what I let slide. For what I ignored when it was convenient." The team stared at him. Some confused. Others ashamed. We watched a man walk into this building. A black man. A working man. And we judged him immediately. Because of his clothes. Because of the way he talked. Because he didn't fit what we thought a rich man should look like. He paused, breathing deeply. And because of that, we almost lost a customer who paid more in one transaction than some of you will make this quarter. But more than that, we lost our integrity, at least for a moment. And if I don't acknowledge that out loud, I'm no different than the silence that let it happen. Kyle looked down at the floor. The receptionist wrung her hands. One of the salesmen cleared his throat and said, "Sir, I didn't mean." "It's not about meaning," Richard interrupted. "It's about impact." They stood there for a moment, the weight of those words landing harder than they expected. "So starting today," Richard continued, "every new hire will go through bias and inclusion training. We'll be working with a diversity consultant. We're redesigning our code of conduct, not just to look good, but to be better. We were lucky Daniel Mason gave us a second chance. Most people wouldn't have." The room stayed silent. But something had shifted. That weekend, Richard drove out to the Civic Center himself. Not for a ceremony. For a meeting. Daniel had agreed, reluctantly, to have coffee with him at a nearby cafe. They sat outside. The wind was light. No cameras. No noise. Just two men, both older than they looked, sitting face to face for the first time without roles, without status. "I'm not here for redemption," Richard said. "I'm here because I didn't see it at the time. And I should have." Daniel nodded slowly. "I've heard that before. I know you have. That's why I wanted to say it directly. You think I haven't walked into rooms like that my whole life?" Daniel asked, voice steady. "It's not new. What's new is watching someone try to make it right." Richard looked down. "I don't deserve credit for that." "You don't," Daniel said bluntly. "But your people might need your example." They sat in silence again. Coffee grew cold. Neither cared. "You raised a remarkable daughter," Richard said eventually. Daniel smiled, eyes crinkling at the corners. "I didn't raise her to be seen. I raised her to see clearly. There's a difference." Richard nodded slowly. "She sees." After they finished, Daniel stood first. "You get a second chance," he said. "Don't waste it." Richard watched him walk away, boots quiet on the concrete, denim jacket still worn like armor. But this time, he didn't see a poor man. He saw a father. A builder. A lesson that would stick. Back at home, Alana sat with her father that evening on the porch, the Aston parked quietly in the driveway, ribbon long gone, but pride still fresh. She leaned her head against his shoulder and said, "I didn't need the car." "I know," he replied. "But I'll never forget the look on their faces. You weren't supposed to." They stayed like that, just the two of them, the cicadas humming somewhere in the trees, and the weight of the world finally light for a while. She had her degree. He had his peace. And the world, just maybe, had one more reason to think twice before judging someone by what they wore into the room. Because the man they laughed at? He didn't just change the tone of one day. He changed the lesson they'd carry for a lifetime. And he did it without raising his voice. Without demanding to be seen. Because some men don't need to prove who they are. They just walk in and let the silence speak for them. If this story touched you, don't forget to like the video. It helps more people hear stories that matter. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss the next one. And if you've ever been judged by how you look or proved someone wrong just by being yourself, share it in the comments. We'd love to hear your voice. Thanks for watching. See you in the next story.